You know what happened to my neighbor Frank just 3 weeks ago? This 67-year-old retired Marine, tough as nails, proud American who served 2 tours in Vietnam, suddenly collapsed in his driveway while washing his truck. The paramedics rushed him to the emergency room, and you know what the doctors found? His blood was so thick with excess iron that his heart was struggling to pump it. His liver enzymes were through the roof, and his vitamin A levels were dangerously toxic. Frank had been religiously taking what he thought were healthy vitamins for 5 years, following advice from a popular health website. Those vitamins nearly killed him. Here's the terrifying truth that the supplement industry doesn't want you to know. If you're over 60 and taking vitamins without knowing this critical information I'm about to share, you could be slowly poisoning yourself. The same vitamins that might help a 30-year-old could be deadly for someone over 60. Your body has changed in ways that make certain nutrients toxic time bombs, while leaving you deficient in others that could literally add decades to your life. I'm talking about 89% of Americans over 60 who are taking supplements right now. Most of you are making dangerous mistakes that could cost you years of healthy living, or worse. Today, I'm going to expose the 4 most dangerous vitamins that you should never take after 60, and reveal the 4 essential nutrients that could transform your golden years into the healthiest period of your entire life. This isn't some theoretical health advice. This is based on cutting-edge research from American medical institutions, real cases from American patients, and the latest findings that are revolutionizing how we think about nutrition after 60. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which bottles to throw away today and which nutrients could save your life tomorrow. So grab something to write with, because this information could be the most important 25 minutes you spend this year. Let me tell you about the hidden crisis that's sweeping through America's aging population. Dr. Robert Stevens from the Cleveland Clinic recently published research that shocked the medical community. He discovered that over 40% of Americans over 60 are taking vitamin combinations that are actually increasing their risk of heart disease, kidney damage, liver problems, and even certain cancers. These aren't exotic supplements from questionable overseas sources. These are mainstream vitamins you can pick up at any CVS, Walgreens, or grocery store across America. The first dangerous vitamin that could be slowly killing you is vitamin A in its retinol form, and this one hits close to home for many patriotic Americans who believe in taking charge of their health. You've probably heard that vitamin A is essential for eye health, immune function, and healthy skin. That's absolutely true for younger adults. But here's what nobody tells you after age 60. Your liver becomes incredibly efficient at storing vitamin A, almost too efficient for your own good. While a healthy 30-year-old can process and eliminate excess vitamin A relatively easily, a 65-year-old's metabolism works completely differently. The same dose that would be perfectly safe for your adult children could accumulate in your liver to toxic levels over just a few months. This condition is called hypervitaminosis A, and it's becoming epidemic among health-conscious American seniors who think they're doing the right thing. Let me tell you about Martha Rodriguez, a 69-year-old retired teacher from Phoenix, Arizona. Martha had always prided herself on staying informed about health. She read health magazines, researched supplements online, and was taking 25,000 IU of vitamin A daily because she'd read it would help prevent macular degeneration. She was a responsible American taking charge of her health, just like millions of others. But over the course of 6 months, Martha began experiencing severe bone pain, especially in her hips and spine. She developed persistent headaches and nausea that her doctors initially attributed to stress or hormonal changes. It wasn't until Martha's daughter, a registered nurse, insisted on comprehensive blood work that they discovered the truth. Martha's vitamin A levels were dangerously elevated, and her liver enzymes showed signs of toxicity. The very supplement she thought was protecting her vision was slowly damaging her liver and leaching calcium from her bones. Within 3 months of stopping the high-dose vitamin A, Martha's symptoms completely disappeared, but the bone density loss took over a year to reverse. Here's what every American over 60 needs to understand: the recommended daily allowance for vitamin A drops significantly after age 60. Men should get no more than 900 micrograms daily, and women no more than 700 micrograms. But walk into any American pharmacy or health food store, and you'll find vitamin A supplements containing 3,000 to 15,000 micrograms. Many popular multivitamins marketed to seniors contain doses that are 3 to 5 times higher than what's safe for our age group. The symptoms of vitamin A toxicity develop slowly and insidiously. You might experience headaches that you attribute to stress, joint pain that you blame on arthritis, fatigue that you assume is just part of getting older, skin changes that seem like normal aging, nausea and dizziness that you might think are medication side effects. But these could all be signs that vitamin A is accumulating to toxic levels in your system. The second dangerous vitamin is iron, and this one is particularly relevant for Americans because of our cultural dietary patterns and medical practices. We live in a country that fortifies everything with iron. Our breakfast cereals, our breads, our processed foods are all pumped full of iron. We eat more red meat than almost any other population on Earth, and when we feel tired or weak, the first thing many doctors suggest is iron supplementation. But here's the shocking truth after age 60. Especially in men and post-menopausal women, iron becomes one of the most dangerous nutrients you can supplement with. As we age, our bodies undergo a fundamental shift in iron metabolism. Iron absorption in the intestines actually increases, while iron loss through menstruation obviously stops in women, and normal iron loss decreases in both sexes. This creates a perfect storm for iron accumulation, a condition that affects millions of Americans, but often goes undiagnosed for years because the symptoms are so easily dismissed as normal aging. Iron overload is called the silent killer because it generates massive amounts of free radicals that damage every organ in your body. Your heart, liver, pancreas, and joints all suffer from iron-induced oxidative damage. The excess iron acts like rust inside your body, corroding your organs from the inside out. And here's the terrifying part: your body has no natural mechanism to actively eliminate excess iron. Every unnecessary milligram you consume stays in your system, accumulating year after year. Let me share the story of William Bill Thompson, a 64-year-old retired construction worker from Oklahoma. Bill embodied the American work ethic. He'd built half the commercial buildings in his town with his own hands, worked 60-hour weeks for 40 years, and took pride in his physical strength and endurance. When he started feeling tired and sluggish after retirement, his family doctor suggested iron supplements, reasoning that Bill might be anemic from years of physical labor. Bill dutifully took 65 milligrams of iron daily for 2 years, along with eating his usual diet rich in red meat and iron-fortified foods. But instead of feeling better, he felt progressively worse. Skin developed a grayish tint that his family joked was his retirement tan. His joints ached constantly. He felt exhausted despite getting plenty of sleep. When Bill finally collapsed at a family barbecue, emergency room tests revealed that his ferritin levels, which measure iron storage, were over 890 ml. Normal levels for his age should be under 200. The excess iron had begun damaging Bill's heart muscle, causing a condition called iron cardiomyopathy. His liver showed signs of iron accumulation that could have progressed to cirrhosis. Through therapeutic blood donations and complete elimination of iron supplements, Bill was able to reverse most of the damage, but it took 3 years of careful medical management and cost his family thousands in medical bills that could have been completely avoided. The Irish, American, and Northern European populations have higher rates of genetic mutations that increase iron absorption, making them particularly vulnerable to iron overload. If you have Celtic, German, or Scandinavian ancestry, which describes millions of Americans, you're at even higher risk. The condition called hereditary hemochromatosis affects about 1 in 200 Americans of Northern European descent, but most don't know they have it until serious organ damage has occurred. Unless you have documented iron deficiency anemia confirmed by comprehensive blood tests including ferritin, transferrin saturation, and complete blood count, iron supplements after 60 are not just unnecessary, they're potentially lethal. The National Institutes of Health, the American Heart Association, and the American Geriatric Society all recommend against routine iron supplementation in healthy adults over 50, yet millions of Americans continue taking iron-containing multivitamins and individual iron supplements. The third dangerous vitamin is vitamin E, specifically the synthetic form called del-alpha-tocopherol that makes up about 90% of vitamin E supplements sold in American stores. This is where the supplement industry has really betrayed the trust of American consumers. For decades, we were told that vitamin E was the fountain of youth, that it would prevent heart disease, cancer, and Alzheimer's disease. Millions of Americans faithfully took their daily vitamin E supplements, believing they were investing in their long-term health. But the research that has emerged over the last 2 decades tells a completely different story, especially for Americans over 60. The landmark Heart Outcomes Prevention Evaluation Study, conducted right here in North America, followed over 9,000 patients for 7 years. The results were shocking. Dose vitamin E supplementation increased the risk of heart failure by 13% and increased overall mortality risk. These weren't people taking megadoses from questionable sources. They were taking 400 IU daily, which is the standard dose found in most vitamin E supplements sold in American pharmacies today. Dr. Edgar Miller from Johns Hopkins University led a comprehensive analysis of 19 vitamin E studies involving over 136,000 participants. His findings were clear and frightening. High-dose vitamin E supplementation, particularly doses above 400 IU daily, significantly increased the risk of death from all causes. The higher the dose, the higher the mortality risk. This means that millions of Americans who thought they were protecting their health with vitamin E were actually shortening their lives. The mechanism behind this increased mortality risk is complex but important to understand. Synthetic vitamin E can interfere with your body's natural antioxidant systems, actually increasing oxidative stress rather than reducing it. It can interfere with vitamin K metabolism, affecting blood clotting and potentially increasing stroke risk. In people over 60 who may already have compromised cardiovascular systems, these effects can be particularly dangerous. Consider the case of Dorothy Martinez, year-old retired librarian from San Diego, California. Dorothy had been taking 800 IU of vitamin E daily for over 5 years because she'd read that it would prevent Alzheimer's disease and keep her skin young. She was a well-educated woman who researched her health decisions carefully, but like many Americans, she relied on outdated information that hadn't been updated to reflect the latest safety research. Over time, Dorothy began experiencing unexplained bruising on her arms and legs. Small cuts would bleed for unusually long periods. When she mentioned this to her doctor during a routine visit, blood tests revealed that her vitamin K-dependent clotting factors were severely impaired. The high-dose synthetic vitamin E was interfering with her body's ability to form blood clots normally. After stopping the vitamin E supplement, Dorothy's clotting function returned to normal within 6 weeks, and the unexplained bruising stopped completely. The confusion around vitamin E supplementation has been exacerbated by the supplement industry's marketing tactics that prey on American seniors' fears of aging and disease. They've promoted synthetic vitamin E as a miracle anti-aging nutrient while downplaying or ignoring the mounting evidence of harm. Natural vitamin E from food sources like nuts, seeds, and vegetable oils is beneficial and safe. But synthetic vitamin E supplements, especially in high doses, are a completely different story for people over 60. The fourth dangerous vitamin that could be silently destroying your health is vitamin B6, and this one particularly affects Americans who believe in the more is better philosophy that dominates our culture. B vitamins have this reputation as being completely safe because they're water-soluble, meaning excess amounts are supposedly just flushed out in your urine. But vitamin B6 breaks this rule in a spectacular and dangerous way that has left thousands of Americans with permanent nerve damage. The safe upper limit for vitamin B6 is 100 milligrams daily for adults, but walk through any American health food store or pharmacy, and you'll find B6 supplements containing 200, 500, or even 1,000 milligrams. Many popular B-complex supplements marketed to seniors contain doses that are 5 to 10 times higher than what's safe. The marketing promises increased energy, better mood, and enhanced cognitive function, but the reality for many Americans over 60 has been devastating nerve damage. High-dose vitamin B6 causes a condition called peripheral neuropathy, which is permanent damage to the nerves in your hands and feet. The symptoms start subtly. A slight tingling in your fingertips, maybe some numbness in your toes that you might attribute to poor circulation or diabetes. But as the nerve damage progresses, for the tingling becomes burning pain, the numbness spreads up your arms and legs, and you lose the ability to feel temperature, texture, and pain normally. Let me tell you about Robert Chen, a 72-year-old retired engineer from Seattle, Washington. Robert had always been meticulous about his health, tracking his diet, exercise, and supplements with the same precision he'd applied to his engineering career. When he started feeling less energetic in his late 60s, he researched B vitamin supplementation and decided to take a high-potency B complex that contained 500 milligrams of B6, thinking that more would be better for his aging brain and energy levels. Over the course of 18 months, Robert gradually developed numbness in his fingertips that he initially attributed to arthritis or carpal tunnel syndrome from years of computer work. The numbness progressed to burning pain in his hands and feet, making it difficult for him to sleep. When he could no longer button his shirts or feel the keys on his computer keyboard properly, Robert finally sought medical attention. Neurological testing confirmed severe peripheral neuropathy caused by vitamin B6 toxicity. Even though Robert immediately stopped taking the supplement, much of the nerve damage was permanent. 2 years later, he still experiences numbness and reduced sensation in his hands and feet that affects his balance and fine motor control. What makes Robert's case particularly tragic is that it was completely preventable if he had known that doses above 100 mg daily can cause irreversible nerve damage. The research on B6 toxicity is clear and frightening. Studies show that doses above 200 mg daily, when taken for months or years, cause peripheral neuropathy in up to 30% of users over 60. The nerve damage often begins before symptoms appear, meaning that by the time you notice tingling or numbness, permanent damage may have already occurred. And unlike other forms of neuropathy that might be caused by diabetes or circulation problems, B6-induced neuropathy is entirely preventable but often irreversible. What makes this particularly devastating for older Americans is that we're already at higher risk for neuropathy due to diabetes, circulation issues, and other age-related conditions. Adding vitamin B6 toxicity to the mix can accelerate nerve damage and make existing neuropathy much worse. Many Americans over 60 who develop unexplained tingling, numbness, or burning in their hands and feet never consider that they're healthy. Vitamin supplements might be the cause. Now that we've cleared the dangerous supplements from your medicine cabinet, let's talk about the 4 vitamins that could genuinely save your life and add healthy years to your future. These recommendations aren't based on supplement industry marketing or wishful thinking. They're based on decades of rigorous research specifically focused on the aging American population, conducted at institutions like Harvard, Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins, and the National Institutes of Health. The first essential vitamin that every American over 60 should be taking is vitamin D3, and the statistics on vitamin D deficiency in our aging population are absolutely catastrophic. Recent studies show that 85% of Americans over 60 are vitamin D deficient, and this deficiency is literally stealing years from our lives while dramatically reducing the quality of our remaining years. But here's what most Americans don't understand about vitamin D: the requirements after 60 are dramatically different from what younger adults need, and the standard government recommendations are based on preventing rickets in children, not optimizing health in aging adults. The current RDA of 600 IU for adults over 60 is laughably inadequate for maintaining optimal health. For real health benefits, most Americans over 60 need between 2,000 and 4,000 IU daily, depending on their baseline levels, skin color, geographic location, and lifestyle factors. Michael Holick from Boston University, who is widely considered the world's leading vitamin D researcher, has spent decades documenting how vitamin D deficiency after 60 accelerates bone loss, increases fall risk, compromises immune function, increases cancer risk, and contributes to cardiovascular disease and cognitive decline. His research shows that maintaining optimal vitamin D levels could prevent thousands of American deaths each year from falls, fractures, infections, and chronic diseases. The problem for Americans is multifaceted. First, as we age, our skin becomes less efficient at producing vitamin D from sunlight. A 70-year-old produces about 25% as much vitamin D from the same sun exposure as a 20-year-old. Second, many Americans over 60 spend most of their time indoors, especially during winter months in northern states. Third, the use of sunscreen, while important for preventing skin cancer, also blocks vitamin D production. Fourth, obesity, which affects a large percentage of older Americans, reduces the bioavailability of vitamin D. Let me share the remarkable story of James Patterson, a 64-year-old retired farmer from Nebraska. James had spent his entire working life outdoors under the prairie sun, so vitamin D deficiency was the last thing on his mind when he started experiencing problems after retirement. But spending more time indoors, especially during harsh Midwest winters, caused his vitamin D levels to plummet to 18 ng/ml, which is severely deficient. James began experiencing muscle weakness that made it difficult to climb stairs or get up from chairs. He developed frequent respiratory infections that kept him sick for weeks at a time. His mood became increasingly depressed, which his family attributed to retirement adjustment. When his wife finally convinced him to see a doctor about his declining health, comprehensive blood work revealed his severe vitamin D deficiency. James's doctor prescribed 4,000 IU of vitamin D3 daily, and the transformation over the following 6 months was remarkable. His muscle strength returned to nearly normal levels. He stopped getting sick every few weeks with respiratory infections. His mood improved dramatically, and he regained the energy and enthusiasm his family remembered. Follow-up testing showed his vitamin D level had risen to 45 ng/ml, which is in the optimal range for health benefits. The key insight for Americans over 60 is that optimal vitamin D levels are much higher than what most labs consider normal. You want your 25-hydroxyvitamin D level between 40 and 60 ml, not just above the deficiency threshold of 39 ng/ml that many labs use. Research consistently shows that this higher range is associated with better bone health, stronger immune function, reduced cancer risk, better mood, and increased longevity. Most Americans over 60 living in northern states need 3,000 to 4,000 IU of vitamin D3 daily to maintain optimal levels, especially during winter months. Those with darker skin pigmentation, which blocks some UV radiation, may need even higher doses. The only way to know your individual needs is to test your blood levels and adjust your dose accordingly. Vitamin D toxicity is possible but extremely rare at these doses, and the benefits far outweigh the minimal risks for the vast majority of Americans over 60. The second essential vitamin that could transform your health after 60 is vitamin B12, and the statistics on B12 deficiency in older Americans are truly alarming. Up to 40% of Americans over 60 are B12 deficient. But here's the terrifying part: standard blood tests often miss this deficiency, and by the time obvious symptoms appear, irreversible brain and nerve damage may have already occurred. B12 deficiency after 60 isn't usually caused by inadequate dietary intake. Americans eat plenty of B12-rich foods like meat, fish, dairy, and eggs. The problem is absorption. As we age, our stomach acid production decreases significantly, sometimes by 50% or more. We also produce less of a protein called intrinsic factor, which is essential for B12 absorption in the small intestine. This means that even Americans eating B12-rich diets may not be absorbing enough of this critical nutrient to meet their body's needs. B12 deficiency doesn't just cause fatigue, though that's often the first symptom people notice. It causes a specific type of anemia called megaloblastic anemia, where red blood cells become abnormally large and can't carry oxygen efficiently. More importantly, for Americans over 60, B12 deficiency causes progressive damage to the nervous system that can be mistaken for normal aging or early dementia. Dr. Ralph Green from UC Davis, who has studied B12 deficiency for over 30 years, has published extensive research showing that B12 deficiency can cause memory problems, confusion, depression, personality changes, difficulty with balance and coordination, and cognitive decline that is completely reversible with proper supplementation, but only if caught early enough. Once nerve damage progresses beyond a certain point, it becomes permanent. The tragic case of Eleanor Washington, a 67-year-old retired school nurse from Atlanta, Georgia, illustrates this perfectly. Eleanor's family became increasingly worried about her memory lapses, mood changes, and confusion that seemed to be getting worse over several months. Her primary care doctor ordered the standard dementia screening tests and suggested that Eleanor might be developing Alzheimer's disease or another form of dementia. Fortunately, Eleanor's daughter, who was also a nurse, had learned about B12 deficiency in a continuing education course and insisted on comprehensive B12 testing that included not just serum B12 levels, but also methylmalonic acid and homocysteine levels, which are more sensitive indicators of B12 deficiency at the cellular level. The results showed severe functional B12 deficiency despite B12 blood levels that appeared normal on standard testing. Eleanor was started on high-dose B12 supplementation with 1,000 micrograms daily of methylcobalamin, the active form of B12. Within 3 months, her cognitive symptoms began to improve. After 6 months, her memory, mood, and mental clarity had returned to normal. What her family had feared was early dementia was actually completely reversible B12 deficiency that could have been prevented with proper supplementation. The key for Americans over 60 is choosing the right form and dose of B12. Cyanocobalamin is the synthetic form found in most cheap supplements and multivitamins, but methylcobalamin and adenosylcobalamin are the active forms that are more readily utilized by aging bodies. The sublingual route, where the B12 dissolves under your tongue, bypasses the absorption problems in the stomach and small intestine that affect many older adults. For optimal health, Americans over 60 should take 500 to 1,000 micrograms daily of methylcobalamin in sublingual form. This dose is much higher than the RDA, but it's necessary to overcome the absorption problems that develop with age and ensure adequate B12 levels at the cellular level. B12 is extremely safe even in high doses because excess amounts are easily eliminated by the kidneys, unlike the fat-soluble vitamins we discussed earlier. The third essential vitamin that every American over 60 should know about is vitamin K2. And this is probably the most overlooked nutrient in all of American medicine. Most people have never heard of K2, or they confuse it with vitamin K1, which is found in leafy green vegetables and helps with blood clotting. But K2 has entirely different functions that are absolutely critical for Americans over 60, particularly for bone and cardiovascular health. Vitamin K2's primary job is to direct calcium traffic in your body. It activates proteins that guide calcium into your bones and teeth, where you want it, while keeping calcium out of your arteries, heart valves, kidneys, and other soft tissues, where it can cause serious damage. Without adequate K2, calcium supplementation can actually increase your risk of heart disease and stroke while doing little to improve bone health. This explains one of the great mysteries of American medicine: why populations that consume lots of calcium don't necessarily have stronger bones or healthier hearts. The Dutch consume large amounts of K2, rich foods like grass, fed dairy products, and have some of the lowest rates of osteoporosis and heart disease in the world, despite not consuming more calcium than Americans. The Japanese consume fermented soybeans called natto, which are extremely rich in K2, and have remarkably low rates of osteoporosis and cardiovascular disease. The landmark Framingham Heart Study, which has followed American families for over 70 years, found that higher vitamin K2 intake was associated with a 57% reduction in death from cardiovascular disease. But here's the problem for Americans. Our modern diet contains virtually no vitamin K2. Our ancestors got K2 from grass-fed animal products, fermented foods, and organ meats, but these foods have largely disappeared from the American diet. Modern factory-farmed animal products contain almost no K2 because the animals are fed grain instead of grass. We've replaced traditional fermented foods with processed alternatives that contain no K2. Most Americans have never eaten organ meats, which are rich sources of K2. This has created a widespread K2 deficiency that is contributing to both the osteoporosis epidemic and the cardiovascular disease epidemic affecting older Americans. Dr. Kate Room-Blue, one of the leading K2 researchers, explains that Americans over 60 are caught in a perfect storm. We're taking calcium supplements for bone health based on medical recommendations, but without K2 to direct that calcium properly, much of it ends up calcifying our arteries instead of strengthening our bones. This explains why some studies have shown that calcium supplementation can increase heart attack risk while providing minimal bone benefits. The case of Margaret Chen, a 71-year-old retired teacher from Portland, Oregon, perfectly illustrates this problem. Margaret had been faithfully taking 200 mg of calcium daily for over 5 years after her doctor recommended it following a minor wrist fracture, but her follow-up bone density scans showed minimal improvement, and a coronary calcium score test revealed significant calcification in her heart arteries that hadn't been there before. Margaret's integrative medicine doctor explained the calcium paradox and added 180 micrograms of vitamin K2 in the MK7 form to her daily regimen while continuing the calcium supplementation. Over the next 2 years, Margaret's bone density improved significantly for the first time since she'd started taking calcium. Even more remarkably, her follow-up cardiac calcium score showed that the arterial calcification had stabilized and even decreased slightly in some areas. For Americans over 60, the optimal dose of vitamin K2 is 180 to 200 micrograms daily in the MK7 form, which has the longest half-life in the body and the best research support for both bone and cardiovascular benefits. If you're taking blood-thinning medications like warfarin, you'll need to work with your doctor to monitor your clotting times, but don't skip K2 entirely. The benefits for bone and cardiovascular health are too important, and recent research suggests that K2 may actually make blood thinners work more effectively and safely. The fourth essential nutrient that could save your life after 60 is actually a mineral that functions like a vitamin: magnesium. Over 70% of Americans over 60 are magnesium deficient, and this deficiency is linked to virtually every major health condition that affects our aging population: cardiovascular disease, diabetes, osteoporosis, depression, anxiety, insomnia, muscle cramps, and cognitive decline. Magnesium is involved in over 600 different enzymatic reactions in your body. It's absolutely essential for energy production at the cellular level, protein synthesis, blood sugar control, blood pressure regulation, nerve function, and muscle contraction. Without adequate magnesium, your body simply can't function optimally, regardless of what other nutrients or medications you might be taking. The problem for Americans over 60 is that magnesium deficiency develops gradually and insidiously. As we age, magnesium absorption in the intestines decreases while kidney excretion increases. Many medications commonly prescribed to older adults further deplete magnesium stores. Diuretics wash magnesium out through the kidneys. Proton pump inhibitors block magnesium absorption, and some antibiotics can interfere with magnesium metabolism. The American diet makes magnesium deficiency even more likely. Our soils have been depleted of magnesium by industrial farming practices, so even magnesium-rich foods like nuts, seeds, and whole grains contain less magnesium than they did 50 years ago. Food processing removes most of the magnesium that remains. Chronic stress, which affects many Americans dealing with health concerns, financial pressures, and family responsibilities, increases magnesium losses through the kidneys. Dr. Andrea Rosanoff, who has studied magnesium for over 20 years, points out that the symptoms of magnesium deficiency are often dismissed as normal aging when they could be completely resolved with proper supplementation. Muscle cramps, restless leg syndrome, irregular heartbeat, high blood pressure, anxiety, depression, insomnia, fatigue, and poor exercise tolerance can all be signs of magnesium deficiency. The remarkable story of Patricia Williams, a 65-year-old retired school principal from Charlotte, North Carolina, shows how dramatically magnesium supplementation can improve quality of life. Patricia had been experiencing severe muscle cramps in her legs and feet that woke her up several times each night. She also developed restless leg syndrome that made it almost impossible to sit still in the evenings. Her anxiety levels increased significantly, affecting her relationships with family and friends. Patricia's doctor prescribed sleeping pills for the insomnia and anti-anxiety medication for the mood changes, but neither addressed the underlying magnesium deficiency. When Patricia mentioned her symptoms to a friend who was a retired nurse, she suggested comprehensive mineral testing that revealed severe magnesium deficiency, along with adequate levels of other minerals. Patricia started taking 400 milligrams of magnesium glycinate daily, choosing this form because it's well absorbed and doesn't cause digestive upset like some other forms of magnesium. Within 2 weeks, her muscle cramps disappeared completely. Her restless leg syndrome improved dramatically. Her sleep quality returned to normal, and her anxiety levels decreased to the point where she no longer needed medication. The challenge with magnesium supplementation for Americans over 60 is choosing the right form and dose. Magnesium oxide, which is the cheapest and most common form found in drugstore supplements, has very poor absorption and often causes digestive problems like diarrhea. For older adults, chelated forms like magnesium glycinate, magnesium malate, or magnesium taurate are much better choices because they're more easily absorbed and less likely to cause stomach upset. The optimal dose for most Americans over 60 is 400 to 600 milligrams daily, preferably taken in the evening because magnesium has a natural calming effect that can improve sleep quality. It's important to start with a lower dose and gradually increase to avoid digestive upset. Taking magnesium with a small amount of food can also help with absorption and reduce the chance of stomach irritation. What's particularly important to understand is that magnesium works synergistically with the other nutrients we've discussed. Magnesium is needed for vitamin D activation in the kidneys, so taking vitamin D without adequate magnesium can actually worsen magnesium deficiency. Magnesium is also essential for proper calcium utilization and works together with vitamin K2 to ensure calcium goes to bones instead of soft tissues. Now let's talk about how to implement these life-changing recommendations safely and effectively. The science behind why these specific nutrients are crucial for Americans over 60 is based on fundamental changes that occur in our bodies as we age, changes that completely alter how we process and utilize nutrients compared to younger adults. Dr. Jeffrey Blumberg from Tufts University has dedicated his career to studying nutrition in aging populations, and his research has revolutionized our understanding of nutrient needs after 60. The traditional approach of one-size-fits-all nutrition that dominates American dietary guidelines simply doesn't work for our aging bodies. After 60, we experience decreased stomach acid production, reduced kidney function, changes in liver metabolism, and declining cellular energy production that affect every aspect of nutrition. The implementation strategy I recommend is designed specifically for Americans who want to take control of their health while avoiding the mistakes that have harmed so many others. This isn't about taking more supplements or spending more money. It's about taking the right nutrients in the right forms at the right doses while eliminating the dangerous ones that could be undermining your health. The first phase, which should last 30 days, focuses on elimination and assessment. This is when you remove the 4 dangerous vitamins we discussed and get comprehensive blood testing to establish your baseline nutrient levels. The blood test should include vitamin D25, hydroxyvitamin D, vitamin B12, methylmalonic acid, homocysteine, ferritin, complete blood count, and comprehensive metabolic panel. Many Americans skip this crucial step and supplement blindly, but testing gives you the roadmap for your individual needs. During this first month, you're also cleaning house in your supplement cabinet. Read every label carefully. Look for any products containing high-dose vitamin A over 3,000 IU, any iron unless specifically prescribed by your doctor, synthetic vitamin E listed as dill alpha tocopherol, or high-dose vitamin B6 over 50 milligrams. Most American seniors will need to replace their multivitamin because most contain problematic levels of these nutrients. The second phase, days 31 through 60, introduces the essential nutrients systematically. Start with vitamin D3 at 2,000 IU daily, taken with a meal that contains healthy fats like olive oil, nuts, avocado, or fatty fish for optimal absorption. Add vitamin B12 as 500 micrograms of methylcobalamin sublingually each morning on an empty stomach. These 2 nutrients often produce noticeable improvements in energy and mood within 2 to 3 weeks. During weeks 5 and 6, add magnesium glycinate starting at 200 milligrams with dinner and increasing to 400 milligrams if well tolerated. Magnesium is best taken in the evening because it promotes relaxation and better sleep. Finally, add vitamin K2 as 180 micrograms of MK7 daily, preferably taken with your largest meal of the day since it's fat-soluble.